Welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Produce Moms Podcast. And hey, if you're a follower of this show, you know that we are really excited because right now we are working on a great project that's really focused on the recruiting, preparing, and supporting of family and consumer sciences education. And today we're kicking off that project. We're kicking off that wonderful partnership that we're able to, it's an honor for us to be part of this. I have so much respect for the men and women who are committed to educating our students, our K-12 students, and even post-secondary students on nutrition education, culinary arts, and so much more falls under that umbrella. We have an introductory episode to this series that dropped just a couple weeks ago. So scroll back into the archives to learn more about what this entire campaign is all about. But hey, as we think about fruits and vegetables, and as we think about our shared mission and quest to get everyone to eat more fresh produce, education is the leading means to increase the consumption of fruits and vegetables in volume and variety. I have said that since the day I published that first WordPress blog in 2012 to start the Produce Moms. I fully believe that education is where it all begins. So with a warm heart and just a grateful heart, I am so excited to kick this series off. We have two women with us. Alyson McIntyre-Reiger. She is the lead FCS education president. She is the FCCLA state advisor here in the state of Indiana. She is the woman who has taught me so much of what I know about family and consumer sciences. And so it's going to be a pleasure to welcome her on the show. In addition to Alyson, we are welcoming Carol Werhan. She is a professor at Purdue University, family and consumer sciences teacher educator. So these are two women who have committed their entire professional lives to this sector of education. So it's a pleasure to bring them on. Alyson, we'll start with you. Please say hello and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Alyson. I'm so excited to be here today.
Thank you. We're glad you're here too. And Carol, say hello.
Hi, this is Carol. I'm glad to be here as well.
Yes, this is going to be great. So let's talk about your careers in family and consumer sciences. Carol, how about we'll start with you on this? You're a professor at Purdue University. We'll go back and forth on that here post show. I'm an IU graduate, so
I'm sorry.
I know. We have to get those digs in, right? But anyway, tell us a little bit more about what you do, how your career began, and what you're focused on now.
Okay, thank you. Well, in the 80s, I graduated from Oklahoma State University and went into social services because during that time period, there were several, primarily women, who went into the field of home economics education at the time. I went into social services, and then I realized at some point that I really wanted to be a high school teacher, which is what I was prepared to do. So I taught family and consumer sciences. The name had changed by that time. To high schoolers in a rural community in Oklahoma. My family ended up moving to Indiana, actually, where I started working on a graduate degree at Indiana State University and had a wonderful mentor who encouraged me to go into higher education to be a teacher educator. So I've been a teacher educator at multiple universities and currently am at Purdue University preparing people to become family and consumer sciences teachers.
Wow, that's great. Well, we're glad you're here. And Alyson, my dear, the woman who even taught me what all these acronyms mean, I tell you what, folks, during this series, you're going to feel like it's alphabet soup. No one uses more acronyms than educators. But Alyson, we're glad you're here. Please tell us a little bit more about your professional background and what family and consumer sciences means to you.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And actually, Carol and I have some crossover in our story in that we had that same mentor at Indiana State University.
Well, that's amazing.
College.
Shout out. That's fantastic.
She just was recognized as being a 50-year member of one of our associations and has inspired a lot of current FCS educators that are out there. But I was really lucky when I was at Indiana State. I was able to stay on and do my graduate degree with her and work on a federal grant that was rape and sexual assault prevention. And so I did that prior to going into the classroom. And I taught in Evansville, Indiana at North High School as a family and consumer sciences teacher. And from there, I went to the Department of Education and I worked for 5 years as a family consumer sciences administrator for the state. And then I have currently left and I do a lot of consulting work, but one of the groups that I work with is Indiana FCCLA and the other is Indiana ProStart, which is really related to our culinary arts curriculum.
Yeah, that's great. And it was during that tenure with the State Department of Education when I met Alyson. So it's been a wonderful friendship and professional camaraderie since the day I met her. These are, I'm just getting to know Carol, but I can say anyone who's a friend of Alyson's is a friend of mine at the Produce Mom. So
very good. Very good.
So Carol, from what I understand, there's a teacher shortage. So, and you've been involved with this research. Tell us a little bit more. I mean, anecdotally, I think anyone listening to our show has heard the rumblings of just like a nationwide teacher shortage, period. Like at the umbrella level, like they're not even dialing it down to family and consumer sciences. But tell us a little bit more about your research and how it's specifically affecting this track of education.
My research began several years ago talking about men as family and consumer sciences teachers, as well as the status of family and consumer sciences education in the U.S. And we have found through research that the majority of states are recording a significant shortage in family and consumer sciences teachers to be able to fill the void within classrooms. But I will say, as someone who's works in the College of Education at Purdue, this secondary education teacher shortage is significant through all fields, all across the U.S. So it's not as severe in elementary ed as it is in secondary education. So that has been my research to identify where the shortages are, and then we're hoping to be able to determine ways that we might increase the number of students going into secondary education.
Comes back to that recruiting, which is, that's one of the cornerstones of this entire project and really this entire series at the Produce Moms. So, and as we talk about that, Alyson, in your work, do you know, so there's this shortage of teachers, but from what I understand and what you've told me in the past, there's no shortage of interest from the student's point of view in enrolling in family and consumer sciences courses.
Right. So we're seeing a demand that's still there for family and consumer sciences teachers at schools. And one of the things I really find interesting, and I'll speak specifically to this year, and it's anecdotal, but I'm the one that gets the emails about it. It's how many programs that we're seeing add staffing in family consumer sciences right now. And so I know this past month or two, I would say I've had about 7 programs that are looking for a teacher, and it's not because of a retirement. It's not a replacement. It's a new additional staff member because of the growth in their program.
Right.
And so that's really impacting what is already a teacher shortage, is that we're also seeing some growth in some areas and in some programs. And I think that's really attributed to people that have really strong family consumer sciences pathways, strong FCCLA programs, and just some really great teachers.
Well, and there's no, I feel like society is prime for getting people interested in two of the real pillars of family and consumer sciences. I know that umbrella covers a lot in the classroom, but 2 of the big pillars are nutrition and culinary arts. And when you think about society today, nutrition's never been more in vogue, and you can't really go anywhere without the culinary arts and food being part of it. And when you think about one of the positive things from social media, that's a huge positive, is this spiked interest in culinary arts and, beautiful plates and presentation and all that. So very interesting. Thank you for sharing your remarks. And so Carol, coming back to you with the research you've done, any specific things related to the teacher shortage, like anything that really impacts this or drives this?
Well, it's one of those multi-factual things.
Right.
I would say in general in the U.S., a downplay of respect for the teaching profession in general, whether it be pay, respect, classroom size. In the past, it would be a career that parents would highly encourage their kids to go into. And as a teacher educator, where I'll have teacher candidates go into the field, many times, they will have someone pull them aside and say, are you sure you want to do this?
Oh, geez. Yeah.
So there's some of that.
Yeah.
And as Alyson said, there is some teacher retirement impacts a shortage, but I think there's also a misperception of availability of jobs. I promote family and consumer sciences teacher education at Purdue every semester. I meet with other people who are interested in people-centered sciences. So they have a predisposition to maybe be a family and consumer science teacher. And I usually always get a well-meaning sophomore tell me, but there are no jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, why do you think that? And, because I know I've heard there's no data point is the perception of there are no jobs. And I said, well, actually, our students all get jobs months before they graduate,
right,
which will not be the case for every college graduate.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I have definitely been guilty of that myself, of saying I don't know. Are there jobs available for teachers? Because I look at the small elementary school that my kids go to, and there's relatively low turnover. It doesn't really feel like we're getting new faces in the building. And so that affects my anecdotal perception, it's hard. It's really hard to get a job. So I'm glad you brought it up, that the data actually denounces that emotion that so many of us have.
What happened back in the 60s, 70s, early 80s, a new graduate in family consumer sciences teacher education would go to where the jobs are. My students go to wherever they want to be.
Wow.
They have so many offers for jobs. And so that leaves those rural areas, those underserved schools that don't hardly have a chance unless they grow their own and send them to teacher preparation, because most of our students like to go back to the area from which they grew up. So when we have principals email me and say, do you have anybody? It's like, no, but you could send me somebody and I'll have somebody for you in 4 years.
Right. That's a great point as well. Go ahead, Alyson.
I was going to add, I think that grow your own approach is really a strong opportunity for our rural communities to be thinking proactively about how they fill their teacher shortages. And we're even seeing nationally in some districts where they are agreeing to sign students on as they graduate from high school. And that if a position's open, they'll guarantee them first right to the job when they come back. It's getting that commitment from that student at that point. And Indiana has a unique scholarship program that is legislatively funded, I believe, and it's ran through the Commission for Higher Ed for students who are interested in teaching. It will help pay your tuition, but you have to agree to serve 5 years in a school. And so there are things like that.
Initiatives like that are in every state.
Yeah. More and more. Yeah.
Right. Very interesting. So, Alyson, you were extremely hands-on with the grant component of this project and whatnot. So help our listeners understand a little bit more about how this teacher shortage actually impacted the grant and the project that you're all working on right now.
Yeah, it was really a catalyst for writing the grant. And I came on after that fact, but mostly through what Portion's lead FCS education is working with directly, which is about supporting teachers. But the shortage is what drove us to write a grant. And one of the focus areas for the grant was actually the Northeast area, because they have a lack of teacher preparation programs available to students. So they're feeling the shortage in a very different way, even than some of our other states and parts of the country. And I don't know, Carol, if there's anything you would want to add to that.
So when you say Northeast, you mean like Northeast United States, like New England?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They have family and consumer sciences programs in those states, but they don't have anywhere for a kid to go to college to become a family and consumer sciences teacher.
Oh, yeah. So that's a big problem.
The USDA saw this shortage of public school and community educators in family and consumer sciences, and they offered this grant of trying to recruit, prepare, and support family and consumer sciences educators.
Okay,
so some other things that people will probably talk about coming from there are ways that we've looked at course availability to students, looking across universities, making things more accessible to people in other parts of the country. So if you're not in Purdue's backyard, how can you still access an education at Purdue? And
I don't know, maybe 2020 accelerated that. I don't know, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
what we do have at Purdue is a transition to teaching for someone who has a degree in something like a degree in nutrition, a degree in child development, who might want to be a family and consumer sciences teacher. We have a fully online transition to teaching program now that all of my students who are in that program actually are teaching family and consumer sciences while working on a transition to teaching license. And so that's one of the ways that we're trying to meet the need of family and consumer sciences teachers in Indiana, and most states also have those types of programs as well. If someone's interested, they're 40, they're 45, they're wanting something different.
Yeah, that's amazing.
They have a background area, they could become a teacher.
That's amazing. So that definitely is, something we discussed pre-show was, let's talk about initiatives and activities on how we're going to, do this recruiting, engage college students and have them start thinking about becoming teachers. It sounds like that program is really targeting people who are done with their undergrad, maybe in a career that they're not super happy with, looking for a change or a new opportunity. What's actually being done with your active college students, Carol? What are you seeing as some of the leading trends or proven strategies?
Well,
or high school. I mean, I guess you have to start before they actually enroll in college. So yeah.
We try, as Purdue is the place in Indiana to become a family and consumer sciences teacher, we try to be at every place that has potential candidates. And so we are at everything FCCLA. And Alyson and I started a program called Be a Teacher Day that started back in 2016. We've done 5 or 6 of them. One year we did 2. One year we didn't do any. Well, 2020 we didn't do any. Where the concept of becoming a teacher, any kind of teacher, but we have a lot of an FCS presence at this event so that kids know, because we know from career exploration that sometimes people don't make a career choice because they don't know anything about it. So you may have someone who thinks they want to be a teacher, but then maybe their high school doesn't have family and consumer sciences, or they don't understand the nutrition teacher, the culinary arts teacher is a family and consumer science teacher. So we've been doing this event for a while.
Right. Yeah. And as you're talking, I want to just do a couple of those acronym qualifiers or like a little pause and have a little glossary moment here for everyone. FCS, Family and Consumer Sciences. And then the other one that you said, FCCLA. Alyson, please describe that. That's how you and I met, was through FCCLA.
Yeah. So FCCLA stands for Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. It is a career and technical student organization. It's actually just finishing up its 75th year. So it's been around for a long time. And I'll just say that that's how I got my start and how I got engaged in family and consumer sciences. Is I was an FCCLA member in high school. I went on to take a leadership role, and I was the state president for Indiana. And then that's when I decided to be a family and consumer sciences teacher. Right.
And I will say, for any of my agriculture friends that are tuning into this episode, or anyone that I've gotten to know through the business side of the Produce Moms, you may have heard me describe this organization because it is one that we, consider a great opportunity for our industry to do more with. I have described it before. You're not going to find this description on the website, but I have described it before before is it's very similar to FFA, except they have red jackets and they're not necessarily farms. They're more focused on in the household, in the kitchen, in the community. So that's how I've described it, to the agriculture industry that we work. And I know, Alyson, that FFA and FCCLA often collaborate.
Yes. Yeah. We're both national career and technical student organizations, both integrated into career and technical education areas. And I like to think of it as like FFA is like the growth and development, and we're like the end user of the product, right? If you think about it from the produce industry perspective, we're the ones who educate people on why they should purchase the product, how they use the product, how they can make nutritious choices based on facts about the product.
Right. And all of these career and technical organizations that touch students are so impactful for your recruiting goals and strategies. But I'd like to talk a little bit more specifically about the Be a Teacher Day. Carol, how have you leveraged that or any other program that you've done to really focus on FCS and all areas of teaching?
Well, I think part of it is the fact that people understand that it's FCS and FCCLA that are putting the program on. We end up having 32 universities participate in our Be a Teacher Day that's held in Indianapolis at the Bankers Life Fieldhouse. It is one of those programs that universities in anticipation will start asking us, when is it going to be? We want to be there. As you may or may not be aware, teacher recruitment is a big thing for universities, and there's not a big budget for it. So this is an opportunity for these 32 teacher education programs to set up their booths. And then our biggest year right before COVID was we had 650 kids who are in a pathway of teaching. So early childhood education or the education professions, they have a predisposition that they think they want to be a teacher. 650 kids show up and they have time to engage with these 32 programs in Indiana to be able to find out, what kind of teacher could I be going to your university? What size is your university? What programs do you have? Plus, there are many other things that we do at Be a Teacher Day. Alyson, if you want to talk about those.
Yeah, so we really do try and focus on what the student needs to know to go into education. And so that's inclusive of financial aid. And Commission for Higher Ed comes and talks about financial aid opportunities and scholarship opportunities. We have someone come and talk about using community college system to lead to a 4-year teaching degree, which I think is really important for some of our students who are not ready to make that transition to a 4-year college. And then we have college students come and talk about what it's like to be a teacher, what it's like to be out in the classroom, what the expectations are. But I think the most important part is that we're giving students the opportunity to have a connection point with all of those universities.
Right.
And in a situation that wouldn't happen. If an ed program in a high school said, okay, we're going to go visit a college, they might get to visit one a year. But by hosting this day, they get to find out information about 32 different programs.
Yeah, that's amazing. Definitely sounds like quite the proven strategy on how states and communities can recruit teachers and how university programs can just become more visible. Carol, as someone who's, every day involved with, the family and consumer sciences teacher education at the university level, any other strategies or university programs that you would like to call out as, things that you admire from as a means to recruit teachers to the field, students to the field?
I think our biggest recruiter are FCS teachers. I frequently get teacher education students from the same high school teacher.
Wow.
They want to be him or her. They want to have the passion for their career like their high school or their middle school teacher. So we really encourage our current middle school and high school FCS teachers to talk to their kids about, why is this a good career? Why is there meaning in this career? If you're wanting to change the world, which so many adolescents have that feeling, this could be a way you could do that. So that's our biggest recruiter. are our middle school and high school FCS teachers.
They're your living ambassadors, no doubt.
Yes.
Yeah. That's such a great point. And I think that no matter what industry point of view you have as you listen to this episode, that's a huge takeaway for any professional. You can be your industry's number one recruiter just by the way you carry yourself. Alyson, anything you want to add to that about the recruiting strategies that you have viewed, that you feel are very impactful?
Yes, I'd like to mention some ways that we collaborate here in Indiana that I think are really impactful. And so a lot of that is because of Carol and her work at Purdue University and our willingness to say, what are we going to do together to make this happen? And Carol mentioned that she is at every FCCLA event. What she didn't mention is that we've also planned several events to be on Purdue's campus over the years. And that gives us an opportunity to take kids to the campus. Yeah, they're coming for FCCLA. They're coming for a fall leadership rally. But we're also going to talk about FCS education. We're going to take them on campus tours. We were able, the last time that we did that, to set up a private lunch with Carol and her college students for students that we thought might be interested in FCS education. So their teacher would recommend them. They'd get to go to the private lunch with Carol and the college students. So we try and make those touch points with the students. We've also included a scholarship for students who are going to go into FCS education that they can earn through an FCCLA competitive event. And so that's been very effective. I think that it's really being purposeful with talking to students about FCS education and making sure they understand it's an important part. We do a signing ceremony for students going into FCS education.
That's cool. Similar to how college student athletes would do. Very cool.
Yes, we're going to have some more information on that, I think, in a future episode. But it is something that is really special, and it includes their family and consumer sciences teacher. And so we just really think those things are important.
Yeah, we all love ceremonial and spotlights and all that. It's a proven strategy, and it's just neat. It's something that's really never been associated with academics, especially this track of academics. So very neat. Love to hear that and look forward to learning more about that specifically. Well, with that, ladies, what a great episode this has been. We have really kicked off this series and dove into some wonderful strategies about recruiting. And thank you both for helping to really paint the picture also as to why it's a critical need. We have to do a better job recruiting teachers and specifically to the family and consumer sciences track. So with that, I invite you both for any closing remarks or thoughts. The mic is always our guest before we close out the show. So thank you. We look forward to continuing this series at the Produce Moms. And Carol, I'll have you, I'll pass the mic to you first for closing remarks. And then Alyson, I'll have you sign us off from the show. So Carol, thanks for being here. The floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Lori. I certainly appreciate it. And I would say to those folks out there that maybe have kids that are, have the heart and mind to do big things, send them to Purdue. We'll take care of them. And what my students always talk about is we have a family. It's a big campus, but the FCS Ed group is inclusive and open and caring. And we'll take care of your kids and then send them back to be a family and consumer science teacher in the area. So thank you, Lori.
Thank you. And Alyson.
Yeah, I think we can't leave without saying, Lori, if you're interested in being a family and consumer sciences teacher, we can help you with that. Right? But for anyone listening out there that maybe is working in any aspect of the industry, we do have a lot of people that come from industry. Industry experience is actually part of the requirements for being a family and consumer sciences teacher. So, feel free to reach out to us if you have an interest and we can help you on that path.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a produce mom in you because there's a produce mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.